Friends, my name is Shailesh Kumar and you are watching National Defense. So, last evening, IST time, United Nations Security Council has once again extended the mandate of the UNIFIL, United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. The extension is for the final time till the end of the next year. 31st December 2026. That would be the day when all the peacekeeping forces would move out of southern Lebanon. The blue line, which they are protecting for almost 5 decades, it's a major decision by the United Nations Security Council. The United Nations Security Council put forth the pen holder, France, resolution 1701. That extended the time period for the blue helmet on the blue line. This is very important for Lebanon because if you would remember, until some time back, that was not a feeling, but when Israel said and Lebanon expressed explicitly that they would want the end of the war, the Hezbollah, the Israel-Hezbollah war. So now from next year onwards, the Lebanon Armed Forces, LAF, will have to take over. So what does it mean? It means many things for Lebanon. It means many things for rest of the peacekeeping forces who are stationed out there. Just to begin with, United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, was established in 1978 under the UN Resolution 425 and 426 after Israel invaded southern Lebanon. That war, which is Litani War, as is known as the Litani War between the Israel and the Lebanon, that forced the United Nations to deploy peacekeeping forces out there to safeguard the region between the blue line, the demarcation from where the Israel moved its forces, and to the Litani River. So that area which is under the blue helmet. Now it is very important that this major war has made at least 10,000 to 11,000 peacekeepers stay there for that very long period of time, almost 50 years, from 1978 to 2026, you can imagine the time period. So southern Lebanon between the Litani River and the Blue Line, the UN demarcated boundary from where the Israel withdrew its forces between the Lebanon and the Israel. So we have to understand that there is another resolution of the United Nations, 1701. That 1701 resolution was passed in 2006 by the United Nations Security Council that monitors the cessation of hostilities because there was a war between Hezbollah and Israel. Israel alleges that Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. So if Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran, then why Iran does not support it upfront? Why Israel is after Hezbollah. Why Hezbollah wants to fight with Israel when there is a Lebanon? So these are the questions amid which this new development had happened. So we have to look at what triggered the very genesis of the 1978 war, the Litani River War. So Israel invaded Lebanon in 1978 in March, I believe on 15th March. Following a Palestinian guerrilla attack, there was a Palestinian Liberation Organization. That point of time, the Palestinian guerrillas, they attacked Israel. The Coastal Road Massacre, the same kind of which you see on 7th of October 2023, the Hamas has carried out the massacre. So that kind of attack was there, the Coastal Road Massacre. It was of the same magnitude. And thereafter, the Israel launched Operation Litani. Litani in the name of the river Litani. They invaded southern Lebanon to push the Palestinian Liberation Organization away from its northern border. And they pushed it. But when it got internationalized, then the United Nations had passed the resolution 425 and 426 in March 1978. This is how the UNIFIL, United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, was created. The mission, the UN mission in Lebanon. The initial mandate of the UNIFIL was to confirm whether the Israeli forces have withdrawn or not. They had to restore the international peace and security in that particular area. So regional security was the mandate. And also they wanted to help the Lebanese government to regain the authority in the southern Lebanon. The mandate got further evolved when Hezbollah and Israel war broke out in 2006. Then United Nations Security Council passed another resolution 1701, which further expanded the role of UNIFIL. So now the UNIFIL's role came to cessation of the hostilities between the Hezbollah and between the Israel. And they had to support the Lebanese armed forces. But the big question is whether when the UNIFIL will move out next year in December 31st, would Lebanon armed forces be capable of holding on to that area? Today they say they have dismantled some 500 infrastructure of the Hezbollah, but dismantling 500 infrastructure, some structures, would that really wipe out the Hezbollah? Or would it regain its strength, or would it come back in another form, in another name? That's the big question looming large. So now, if we go back in history, they had created a buffer zone between the Litani River and the Blue Line. The Blue Line, which was the unauthorized armed groups like Hezbollah were, stationed at. And so they had that was the buffer zone which the UNIFIL had to cater to. So stabilization after the 1978 Litani war, and thereafter again in 2006 cessation of hostilities was the main goal. So when the United States they never wanted to extend the UNIFIL, but they agreed on the promise that the drawdown would be regulated, the inflow of money would be regulated, so with various conditions. But the resolution drafted by France, that further passed by unanimously by the United Nations Security Council. So that shows how important it was. So coming back to that coastal road massacre on March 11, I think, I'm so sorry, I said March 15, but it was March 11, 1978. That killed 38 Israeli civilians and injured around 70. So you can imagine, when only 38 Israelis were being killed and 70 injured, Lebanon launched such a massive operation way back in 2006 or 1978. And the same pattern was, as per Israel, used by Hamas when they launched an attack on Israel on October 23rd, 2023. But here the casualty was much way higher, and the number of hostages was quite high, almost 250 to 254. And out of that, after the ceasefire, around 20 hostages are presumed live in the captivity of Hamas even today. So the operation which Israel has named as Operation Gioradi, or I just forget the name, but whatever the name of the operation is, I believe that is much bigger, and that military operations aim is to finish Hamas, but that is in the Gaza, but we are talking about the Lebanon. So in 1978, Israel pushed PLA, Palestinian Liberation Organization. You would ask, what is that now? What is the status of the PLO? So the PLO is the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian Observer State. The Fatah and Hamas, they were being put on the same platform by the Beijing Declaration. So the China has intervened. They put together all these organizations in Palestine to come together and to work for the common cause, and the common cause is to have a separate Palestine statehood. So the Beijing Declaration, so that is the status. So now what happened? On June 6, 1982, some 76,000 Israeli troops, they invaded Lebanon, and they advanced far beyond, some 40 kilometers, and reached Beirut. Israeli Air Force, they destroyed Syria's Soviet-supplied air defenses in the Bekaa Valley, and they seized Beirut, and they surrounded the West Beirut where the PLO was entrenched, and it has got large-scale civilian casualties. So PLA was evacuated, and thereafter the Sabra and the Shatila massacre happened in 1982. So this is the history which has seen some 17,000 Lebanese and Palestinian got killed, and 650 Israeli got also killed in that operation. And the PLA lost its base in Lebanon that point of time, and it relocated itself to Tunisia, and this has deepened the civil war in Lebanon with Syria, Israel, and the militias, they were fighting with each other, and that has made Hezbollah rise in Lebanon, and Iran, that supported as Israel's allies. So in 85, Israel partially withdrew and maintained a security zone in southern Lebanon, and they were there until year 2000. The war, it failed to bring peace, and the rise of Hezbollah again created some chaos and conflict with the Israel. In 1982, Lebanon war was fought under Operation Litani, and as I told you, they pushed forward the PLO to northern border, 40 kilometers around. So Now, when UNSC votes that the UNIFIL will have mandate only up to 31st December 2026, what would happen thereafter? It is a big challenge for the for the Lebanese armed forces. And then you would see that the Irish peacekeepers and other peacekeepers, they will go away. The big question is whether the Lebanese armed forces are equipped with such weapon systems, such defensive systems, they have such offensive capabilities to wipe out Hezbollah, or do they have the will? So Israel had said it would support Lebanon, and United States is on the same page with Israel and Lebanon. That is how this has happened. So now there is going to be a new regional security scenario, and however, a gap is likely to exist during this reshuffle. So Lebanese armed forces, they are very good forces and they have the support. Perhaps President Joseph Aoun, he has to prove himself. Nawaf Salem, the Prime Minister, has to prove himself, whether they have the will, they have the capability, whether they align with Israel, the United States, how they are going to wipe out the Hezbollah. But the dominance of Iran and the strike on Iran by the United States is definitely a way forward in that direction, because Iran is not what it was earlier before the strike, the B-2 bomber strikes, when the United States says that it has obliterated the capabilities of the Iran, Islamic Republic of Iran. So in that scenario, this move of UNIFIL moving out of Lebanon is very important. I believe that I'll keep you updating about these developments happening, because the Middle East needs to be stabilized, because the Golan Heights, the West Bank, the Israeli operation in Gaza, the Hamas still keeping hostages, it makes there's still not a political or military stability in Syria. So that makes the whole region still volatile. So if there is a reshuffle, that has to be very calculated, it has to be very effective. That is how it would create a scenario which would help bring peace and stability to that region. I thank you for being live in this session. Thank you very much. Keep watching National Defense.